News. Now, British steel bosses have admitted that UK coal could fuel its blast furnaces. That's according to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Now, this adds pressure on Ed Miliband over the blocking of a new Cumbrian coal mine at Whitehaven. So here's the question. Should we bring back British pits to help make British steel? Well, joining me now is the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Richard, welcome to the show. You've been on this conversation for years now. You were one of the first to say British steel should be fully nationalised as a strategic industry. And you've also been saying, why not power it with British coal? Tell us why you think that's a good idea.
Well, it's got a good ring to it, hasn't it? British coal for British steel, for a nation who believes in making our own things. And we know that actually those two industries were the powerhouse of wealth creation for the Industrial Revolution. But look, we've all been gaslit, we've been misinformed, and we've been lied to. And I've discovered it. And I'm calling out the Labour Party and the eco-zealots. When the pit was denied being opened last autumn by Ed Miliband, a concerted effort went around by everybody to say that the coal wasn't suitable to be used by our own blast furnace steelworks at Port Talbot and Scunthorpe, and it was all going to be exported. I have discovered that that was a lie. Last Saturday, in the House of Commons, a Labour MP repeated that point. He misinformed the House of Commons. James Murray, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, earlier this week, likewise, at best misinformed the British people. I have a document from 2020, Martin, which was by an expert, a planning document that was part of the planning representations that confirms letters of support from both Tata Steel and British Steel that they wanted to use the Cumbrian coal, which has the same sort of sulfur content of about 0.9% as the US coal that British Steel is importing from the US and then blends with lower sulfur coal.
Just to interject, I'm very familiar with this case as well, and the position from Greenpeace, I think from Ed Davey and from the Labour Party until now, the official line, if you like, has been that the Whitehaven coal is too sulphur rich. It's dirty coal. It's not good enough to be burnt in British blast furnaces, and it was only earmarked for exportation, and therefore the mine wasn't viable. That was the official line. You're saying that's wrong.
That official line is a deliberate lie by the eco-zealots. I've got the documentation, and I repeat, the US coal that British Steel Scunthorpe is importing from the US is the same sulfur content, almost very, very similar specification to the Cumbrian coal. We've been gaslit. We've been misled. I'm properly angry about it. Literally 10 days ago, I had senior British Steel executives in Scunthorpe tell me that they could use the Cumbria coal. These lies and misinformation from the zealots and the other MPs has got to stop. And all of a sudden, let me just reinforce this point. In the last week, we've seen parliamentarians all of a sudden in love with blast furnaces. The same parliamentarians who until a month ago were hoping that Jingye would do a deal to close the blast furnaces and replace them with newly built electric arc furnaces. I mean, the pure hypocrisy of these people when they were faced with Nigel and I calling it out and saying there were 3 days to save those blast furnaces. That's why there was a recall of Parliament.
This video is sponsored by Saily. Saily is a brand new eSIM service app. What it does is get you a local SIM card that you can use when you're traveling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a text back home. They've got eSIM plans in over 160 countries and 8 regions, so pretty much wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? Well, all you've got to do is hit our link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan, you can choose the best time frame for you, and then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once, so when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and just like that, you could be watching the GB News YouTube channel. You can be connected anywhere you go, and you don't have to deal with patchy Wi-Fi in your hotels. So get sorted for your next trip by downloading Saily using the link in the description below. And if you use our code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us.
So, Richard Tice, what would you say to the government's line has been consistent on this, and that is that we need to move away from coal, it's a dirty fuel, it's not the basis of a sustainable British energy policy? They would say, of course, we need to move towards clean, green energy. What's your response to that? You seem out of kilter with that.
Literally, last Saturday, we had the first recall parliament on a Saturday for 43 years in order to save the blast furnaces. That's what was done. And the reason was the government panicked because Nigel and I said, we've got to save these blast furnaces. So you can't work blast furnaces from electricity. You need coal. The only question is, where does it come from, this coking coal? You either import it from overseas, creating a lot more CO2 and use of shipping fuel, bringing it in from Australia or from the US, or guess what? You could send it about 150, 200 miles from Cumbria, from that West Lancashire mine, and that would be great. British jobs, British wealth creation, British coal for British steel. What's not to like? I'm raging angry about it. I really am, because when you have British steel executives tell you that coal was fine, thank you very much, and yes, you blend it in your coking ovens, and guess what? The Chinese Jingye, who clearly bought a British steel to sabotage it and wind it down, they closed the coking ovens. Well, fine. In the overall scheme of things, we'll let's get some new coking ovens. We've got to think British. We've got to think about our own self-reliance. Okay. We've got to invest in that plant and go for it. We can make a great, great business, a viable business of British steel.
Okay, Richard Tice, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on this Easter Friday. I appreciate your time. Now, a British Steel spokesman has told GB News this, saying it was focused on sourcing the best and necessary materials needed to keep our operations running. And a government spokesman told GB News this: the Labour government is focused on securing our steel industry to protect British jobs and British workers. They claim Whitehaven would not have prevented the situation British Steel has faced, and those suggesting otherwise are wrong. And the Liberal Democrats have previously called for coal mining projects to be cancelled and say opening new coal mines wrecks the good reputation that Britain has built up by cutting its emissions through renewable energy. And last month, the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, refused to say that she would open coal-fired power stations and has previously said that she doesn't think that anyone actually wants to work in coal mines in this country. Well, for a Counterpoint, I'm now joined by the director of the Climate Media Coalition, Donncha McCarthy. Donna, welcome to the show and a very happy Easter to you. You no doubt overheard there Richard Tice saying British coal for British steel. What say you?
Yeah, happy Easter to you, Martin, as well. The extraordinary thing about this debate that really puzzles me is nobody focuses on what the consumption of British steel is and where it comes from, Martin. The facts are, at the moment, we produce 40% of our steel, okay? That we consume around 7 million tonnes a year. Do you know what we export every year? We export 10 million tonnes of scrap steel to Turkey. So if we actually use the new electric arcs for that scrap steel, we could make Britain almost totally independent on steel. The thing that Richard, when he waxes lyrical about British steel for British coal, what he doesn't refer to is that we have to import iron ore from Sweden to do virgin steel. And the magic thing about recycled steel is that it's the same strength as virgin steel. So, and the other point that Richard misses, and I think it's extraordinary, he's proposing £500 million investment in a clapped out plant. It's 30 years old. It's losing £700,000 a day. So it will cost £250 million years to keep it running. If we invest the £500 million Richard wants us to invest in Scunthorpe, in the old technology, that would imply that for the next 10 years, we have to invest £250 million subsidy to keep it going. That's insane. Why has the rest of the developed world moved away from coking coal? 70% of
well, they haven't.
70% of steel and brick.
Well, they haven't. So just a few points there. So we need virgin proper steel if we want to rearm, if we want